wonderful women in payments around the world, and a very big welcome from our studios of self-isolation. This is Pause for Payments with Kristy, and I'm Kristy Duncan, founder of Women in Payments. I am really excited today to have with me Kari Browne, who's Global Sector Leader for Fintech and Transaction Processing for Korn Ferry, based in New York City. I have had the absolute pleasure of working with Kari for a number of years on our US advisory board. And I can tell you, she has some tremendous insights into the US and global talent markets for fintech, transaction processing, payments, banking, and beyond. Not to mention, she's got an amazing network. Kari, let's start by talking about the jobs market in today's COVID-19 environment. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing?
Sure. Thanks, Kristy. I really appreciate you reaching out and asking me to participate in this webinar. We're seeing every day that the unemployment rolls are increasing across the market. I would say that there are pockets of optimism with some sectors. So while the unemployment ranks continue to rise, unfortunately, which is very tragic for all of us to see, there are pockets of optimism and light. I think companies are still hiring. We're still busy. It depends on the financial stability of the company and its meaning in the market. So, distribution companies, logistics companies are still hiring, and they have a great need for a lot of employees at all levels. Fintech companies are still hiring because I think fintech is one of those markets, especially in payments, that is vital to the economic system right now, especially in delivering the CARES Act payments for small businesses and unemployment for employees. Healthcare is a sector that's continuing to grow and hire. Very uneven market right now. Some are obviously going to be laying off a lot of employees, but there are areas where there is continuing to be hiring.
It is actually not surprising that a lot of the fintechs and the e-commerce companies are looking for new talent, because clearly that's the areas of the market that are growing, and there's the market is almost restructuring in how we live our lives and the demand on various things. Certainly, I know lots of people are doing online ordering, and so not only is the way that we live changing, but the way that we transact is changing, and that's going to drive some changes in the markets.
Absolutely.
So given that the market is changing so dramatically, where do you see the opportunities? If I'm looking for a job or looking for opportunities, where do you recommend that people go and look these days?
Well, I think it really depends on the level, Kristy. At the hourly level, as you can see, there's going to be a ton of hiring in warehouses, distribution, shipping. I think that's where, at the hourly level, that's going to be where the new jobs are. And you can see that in all the news reports these days. But I think at the mid-level and executive level hiring, from an industry perspective, I still highlight technology, fintech, healthcare payments is going to be a big market going forward, because that's still an area for a lot of disruption. So I think healthcare payments could be a really great sector for people to look at. So those are the sectors that I think are going to be vital going forward for hiring. But there are also functions that I think are going to be really important for people to focus on at the executive level. More and more companies are going to have to figure out how to become more digital, more agile. Everything's remote right now, so how do you continue to push a digital environment? I mean, if you look at these neobanks and these digital-only banks, they're going to do well, because people are going to figure out how to operate without ever going to a branch or ever seeing a banker. So those types of industries, I think, are going to thrive, especially in financial services. And that function, the digital function, is going to be key to helping those companies transform. I think if you're a data and analytics expert, data is key to figuring how to market to your consumers and how to manage your consumers and help your consumers, especially in financially troubling times. So I think anybody who can get into data and analytics, and it's not capturing the data. It's how you read the data and what you do with the data and how it can impact your business, I think is a really big function for the future. Robotics is going to be huge. So, and AI, artificial intelligence. So the whole STEM rings true. You know, if you're in the STEM environment, you're probably always going to have job opportunities. But I think, you know, I would highlight people with digital skills, DNA skills, robotics, and AI.
Awesome. So that sounds like some words of encouragement for the young people coming up through the STEM education streams as well as,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, as well as taking
There are
a
other
career.
functions that are really going to be hit. You know, if you look at the news today, Google is already cutting its marketing budget significantly. So, you know, in times like these, there are a couple of functions that really suffer. Consulting is probably the first thing that gets cut from every company. So if you're a management consultant, that could be a really difficult career to be in right now. And marketing is a very tough function to be in. Marketing budgets are cut right away. And Google just made an announcement recently that they're going to cut their marketing budget significantly. So, and hire all freezing in marketing.
Yeah, it's that discretionary spend that tends to get hit first, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, it kind of makes sense. You want to focus on the areas where you can actually um, build and maintain the business rather than expanding in an uncertain environment.
Yes. Yeah,
That's very
exactly.
so. If you were considering a job change at this point, what tips would you offer to people who are considering a job change at this point?
Well, I'd be really thoughtful about it. You know, I really want to understand why you're thinking to make a job change right now. Do you see yourself in a company that is not going to weather this crisis, and therefore you should be open to opportunities, either externally, you know, you're proactively going out to look for opportunities because you're not sure your company is going to thrive or your role won't thrive, or you see that other companies could give you greater security, greater stability, and career path in the future. So I'd be really thoughtful about why you're making a career change right now. As I said, is it a more stable company? Will it give you a better career path going forward? I always tell people, don't leave a job until you have a job, especially in this market. So you may be thinking about a change, but don't just get upset one day and quit and say, I'm going to go find another job. For one thing, that's a red flag to most recruiters. They want to know why you don't have a job. And most people can't quit a job until they have another job. So then they're looking for, you know, that gray matter. Why does this person really not have a job right now? So keep your job until you have another job. And also think about the fact that lateral moves could be great for your career right now too. You don't always have to make a move that's going to advance your career right away. You might be willing and able to make a lateral move to another company that might weather the storm better. So you're getting into a better industry, company, or sector, and then you can make your move back up.
Yeah, that's often advice I hear from people who are counseling women in particular, but you know, the advice applies generally, is trying to get experience from different silos, different parts of the industry, or different parts of an organization, in fact, so that it does help to build out your resume as well as your understanding of how things all fit together and who does what in the industry and the organization.
Yep, exactly.
Um, so those are all really good tips, Kari. Um, from a fintech perspective, I know I see a lot of stuff coming out of the UK that they're really trying to protect their fintech industry. And I guess the fear is that given the global environment, there's been a hold on new investments in fintech, and some fintechs have been caught without being able to close various funding rounds. And there's a concern that this great innovation, this wave of innovation and the wave of talent to support that will somehow get lost in the shuffle of this virus pandemic. Do you have any thoughts on where fintech will go in the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah, some colleagues and I were just talking about this the other day, actually, and what I would say is I think a lot of the bigger fintech companies are going to be able to buy product ideas from those innovators very cheaply right now. You know, if you have a great product and a great idea, especially a way to disrupt the financial services market or market better to consumers, and you're trying to build it from a startup perspective, the fintech might be in a great position to buy your actual product versus buying a business. So there could still be great opportunities for innovators and all of these disruptors. It's just more likely that they'll be buying a product versus a company. And I think the same goes true for those employees at those companies. We're still seeing large fintech providers with hundreds of openings, especially within customer service, technology, product, sales, et cetera. So, you know, if your company is laying off a ton of employees, I'd like to think that you could find a larger fintech company that still had a lot of hiring positions open and find a way to trade talent. You know, you're not going to be able to get your talent back as a startup for a long period of time, but maybe you can help a lot of people if you reach out to those bigger fintech players and say, hey, I just laid off half of my you know, AI experts or half of my software programmers. Could you use that talent? So I think as an employee, there'll just be a shift from the innovator to the more you know, established company, the more traditional fintech. But at the same time, you can still innovate because there might be an opportunity for them to buy your product ideas.
So Kari, those are really interesting insights about new ways that fintechs can move forward to get their products out without necessarily doing an exit or managing, you know, differently through this COVID-19 situation. Thanks for sharing that. I want to talk a little bit about the interview process. And everybody seems is working from home now, and we're all doing Zoom, and we're learning about, you know, tips for how to do a Zoom call and don't use your computer as a mirror to, you know, those kind of great tips. And they're all really good tips. And it's a whole new world that we're entering. But tell me about trying to do a job interview in a Zoom call or in a video conferencing environment. Do you have insights or thoughts on how we might do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, we've been using video conferencing for years if we couldn't get to a candidate directly and do a face-to-face. So this isn't anything new. People should be prepared, should have been doing video conferencing for years. So they should be pros at it, but unfortunately they're not. I've got a lot of really scary stories about video conferences that I've done with very senior level C-suite executives that just did not go well at all. You know, I've even had a candidate forget that they were on video conference and they started eating their breakfast cereal in front of me. Yeah, I could write a book about some of the challenges in video conferencing. So the very first thing that I'll tell anybody is it's an interview. It's a formal process, you know. This is not the time to forget that you're on camera. You are being interviewed. It is a formal process, just as if you were sitting across the table from somebody. So put your best suit on, you know, present yourself just as you would within a face-to-face interview. Turn off notifications so that they're not distracting to you while you're interviewing. Practice a recording beforehand if you can to see and make sure the light is okay. Make sure the background isn't distracting. Know your environment. Turn your cell phone off if you're not using it right now. Make sure everybody expects in this day and age that kids might interrupt. That's an acceptable form of disruption in a video conference, but not eating cereal. I've also had video conferences where if you're at a hotel, I don't expect many people are at hotels right now, but I've had people interview from sitting on the bed and the headboard is the view. No, go to the desk, sit at the desk, put your laptop on the desk. This is a formal process. Dress appropriately, know your environment, plan accordingly, and the most important thing is still follow up with thank you notes. An email afterwards, following up with you appreciated their time, something about you understand the role, you're excited about the industry or the company, and maybe a note about why you're interested in that company and industry and that role. These are valuable lessons for anybody in any type of interview.
Wow, awesome. Well, I love getting all your insider tips. Thanks so much. And um, just regarding attire, I remember a comment once, I'll never forget this, where you said that you had insights about how people were attired. Do you have do's and don'ts about things that people should be wearing on their video interviews?
Yes, still dress very modestly, conservatively. Make sure that you've got, you know, nice clothes on. When you and I were talking about that, Kristy, I was talking about in-person interviews, and particularly for men, if your shoes aren't polished, that gives a representation of how you take care of the little things in your life. Small things matter, details matter. So if you can't manage the details of your own presentation, your own clothing, your atmosphere, it sends a message that you're probably not really you're not really good at paying attention to details in your professional life either.
Interesting. Well, especially when you've got lots of time to prepare. Right.
Exactly. Yep. So
Yeah.
still dress conservatively, know what you look like on the video, and you know, don't try and be flashy in a video conference.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Are there any other tips that you might want to share in terms of managing careers in this environment, Kari? It's a whole new environment. We're all kind of working from home. We're doing things differently than we did 2 or 3 months ago. Any tips that you want to share with us?
Yes, absolutely. So we always mention how important it is to network in order to advance your career. You can never depend on always having a job at your current company. And this is a time that has validated that. You know, if you've lost your position in this environment, you know that no company could be the end of your career. And so you can't just network within your own environment. You have to continuously network outside of your current company and in the broader industry. So continue to network, especially when you're not able to get on a flight, see somebody at a conference, see somebody in the office. Network, network, network. It's the most important thing. And right now is such a wonderful time to be able to network, because it actually gives you an opportunity to reach out to people that maybe you haven't spoken to in a while. And instead of just reaching out to say, hey, do you have a job for me? You could actually reach out and see how they're doing. How is the COVID-19 affecting you? Are you safe? Is your family safe? So you could have a precursor conversation and a reason for reaching out to somebody, unfortunately, in today's environment. But keep networking. If you have downtime during your daily routine, check out companies' websites. They're still posting jobs online. So you never want to be dormant in your career path. So always, if you have a company that you really respect and you'd really like to join one day, always look at their website to see what opportunities they're posting. Not every job comes through an executive search consultant. Many come through their own internal recruiting teams. And so you have to have access to those internal recruiting teams, and you wouldn't necessarily get that unless you're looking at their website and you see what they're posting. So network and do your due diligence, make it part of your homework to keep up with what your industry is doing, where the trends are, where the market is going. If you're sitting there in a company that looks like it's going to not survive, like if you work at if you work at a gym, it's probably not going to survive for a while. And if you're a marketing executive for a gym, where could you take your marketing skills and take it to another industry? Think about where you could add value in another industry, and network, network, network.
Yeah, I love that advice. Thanks for that, Kari. It's interesting because networking has kind of changed also in this new environment, and people ask, how do I network in a virtual environment? It's not like I can go to a conference and meet 20 people and follow up and have coffee with them. But I've been doing a fair amount of networking lately, and what I found is it makes it a whole lot easier actually to network in a virtual environment, because you can network with anybody in the world.
Yeah.
It's not just limited to where you can actually go for a coffee with someone in commuting distance. So that's fun. But
That's
I
exactly
find,
right. And you have a reason to reach out to somebody. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, you've got a reason to reach out. And, I get people who connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll respond and say, love to connect with you. Why don't we get on a call? And, you set up a 20-minute call and just find out what they're about. And then you've got another, fairly solid person in your network, which is always good, and helps you to expand your view of the industry, and also have other people who provide insights for you to understand the issues and trends. So
Absolutely.
that's great. One thing I will do, I'll give a little plug for Women in Payments, but we're just launching our jobs board to help people who might be looking for opportunities. And we, similar to what you're saying, Kari, we're seeing a lot of opportunities um, in the digital finance and fintech space. Clearly, the big e-commerce players, Shopify, Amazon, are all looking um, for talent. So that's kind of where we're seeing stuff. Some of the well-funded fintechs, Curve, for example, just got a lot of funding a few months back, and they're hiring. They're opening up an office in the U.S. So uh, those types of opportunities are coming. Which is great, and it helps us to look and see where the market is going. I had another question for you, and that was, if you are working in what somebody called a heritage organization right now, how might you reposition your career to go to work in a fintech?
Oh, to transition into a fintech?
Yeah.
It really, yeah. I get that call. Trust me, I get calls every day asking from a traditional banker or traditional tech executive or an investment banker looking to get into fintech. They see it as a very hot market with a lot of upside, and so many of them want to make the transition. And I would say that a couple of things. If you have always been at a traditional legacy company, then probably look for a traditional, more established fintech company to join. The more innovative startup type companies will really look at you with suspicion, not in a negative way, but they won't really believe that you can make the transition from a big company with a lot of resources into a smaller environment where you have to roll up your sleeves and wear a lot of hats. So see where your function and your skill set can work at a bigger traditional fintech. And then you'll start to understand how more technically advanced, fast-paced companies operate, because even these traditional fintech companies, they do operate at a faster pace than maybe a legacy heritage bank. So I would make that transition first. And then for those executives who really do want to get into a private equity backed or venture backed opportunity, it's most likely that you're going to get those opportunities through your own network and somebody who knows that you do have the DNA, both the IQ, the EQ, and the DNA to move into a less resourced environment and one that moves at a much faster pace. So people have to make a judgment call on you, and they'll more likely be able to do that if they know you personally. And then be open and flexible to different functions. We've had people that have left, like the buy side, for instance, in a finance role, and they've gone into a fintech type company in an investor relations role or a corporate development role. So you might have to repot yourself from a functional perspective. And it may not be the ideal function that you want, but you're repotting yourself so that you can plant roots for the future in that company and in that industry. So a lateral move, maybe a different type of function that still leverages your skill set. Those are different ways of changing your career path from a more traditional company to a startup or a private equity backed and more innovative company.
Wow, all really great insights, Kari. And I love the idea of expanding your career to have different pieces so that you have different perspectives of the industry and ability to see things more from a global view of where the industry is going and how all the various players and pieces fit together. So that's really fascinating. I think we're just about coming to the end of our time. Are there any other tidbits or pearls of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience who may be considering new opportunities in the payments market?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, Kristy, but not specific to payments, but KF Advance, which is our B2C product for Korn Ferry, is a really helpful website for people to go to. And it will help you with resume writing. It will help you with interview tips. It will help you think about changing careers, job changes, how to network. It's a really great tool for people. So I would always recommend that people take a look at that. And then I would say specific to payments and fintech, this is an industry that's going to thrive and only continue to grow in this downturn. And while there won't be a lot of growth necessarily in the organizations, there will still be a necessity for these organizations. And so I think it's a wonderful industry. It offers a lot of opportunities for people. And we look at where payments if payments aren't going to grow from the traditional consumer experience right now, where we see small businesses close down, merchants, people not buying, at the point of sale, but more online. You can look for opportunities with e-commerce companies, with e-commerce platforms, and you could certainly look at other areas where payments are growing substantially, which is in the healthcare space or insurance. So you can still be in payments and go to a totally different industry that's thriving and growing right now.
Wow, those are great insights, Kari. It has been an absolute delight having you here today and sharing your expertise and your knowledge of this industry. I love the fact that you're suggesting networking. It's been one of my mantras for a long time, and I've often been quoted when I say your network is your single biggest career asset. So thanks for affirming that. But I also love your insights to where fintech's going versus e-commerce and other more traditional industries. And I like the idea that you're offering people to perhaps consider a similar role, but in a different, perhaps parallel industry. So take your function and transform it to a parallel industry.
Yep.
So,
from my perspective, networking is key throughout your entire career. That's why I love women in payments. That's why I'm on the advisory board. And that's why I think the symposiums that you host globally are such an opportunity for women to network amongst themselves, and an opportunity for them to meet people in different functions, different companies of all size. And so I really appreciate what you've put together for the payments industry and specific to women in payments, Kristy. So thank you.
Thank you, Kari, for your support. It's been wonderful working with you, and I look forward to continuing to do that. Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Take care. Be safe.